document ad hoc committee made a recommendation to the board of directors to change the voting requirement in your declaration from 2/3 vote to 50% plus one vote. Okay. So in order to change the documents to have the 50% plus one vote, you have to have 667 yes votes of the community. Florida statute does allow the community to take on this task of changing the documents. The resident did point out that in 10.1, which is the proposed change that the attorney drafted, that it is a little vague under the 50% plus one. We will have him edit that a little bit to make it a little more clear. It is 50% of the community plus one other vote. So it would be 501 votes. Yes votes. Looking back historically, these are your annual meetings. And you can see that it's been very difficult that it would be to get that vote. So we really have, if the community is wanting to do this, if they're wanting to move forward with progress, you're really going to have to come out and vote on this change to the documents. Last year, we did get a lot more participation in the annual meeting. However, since this would have been not a 667 yes vote, it would have never passed if that was the case. Reducing the required numbers of votes needed to 50% plus one will make it easier to obtain approval on changes needed in the future in the community. For example, the board is looking at some projects in the future with the Trail Ad Hoc Committee. They're looking at adding some additional trails, adding possibly some elevated trails above some of the waterways. And in order to do that, you have to change your documents. In order to do that, it is now prohibited in your document to build any type of structure over your conservation areas. So in order for them to accomplish this particular item, currently they would have to get 667 votes, yes votes. So in changing the document to allow for 50% plus one, it might be easier to achieve moving forward with this particular project. One of the so we're going to have one other town hall on Thursday night for people that might still continue to work and would like to get this information as well. Once that town hall concludes on that Friday the 19th or there shortly after, you will receive your voting material for anybody that is signed up for electronic voting. It does take a little bit longer to get it if you still receive everything through snail mail. The date for the final votes is September 23rd at 9 o'clock here in the social hall. And as you can see up there, it lists out what we're trying to do. So that if you're in favor of the vote to change it from the 2/3 vote of the community to the 50%, you will need 667 yes votes for this vote going out on the 19th. Is there anything that I missed, Josh?
No, mainly we just want to make sure that everybody understands too, this is just a one-time vote to change the voting requirement. There's other projects that the community is considering, so rather than each one of those having to get 667 votes, it would be easier just to change the requirement and then vote on those, so they would only need 50% plus one.
So Does the board have anything that they would like to add to this at this time?
Hi, I'm Alex Olfonte, president of the association. Just wanted to tell you how important this is to this community. As we move forward, and there's been a lot of hard work going on at this time between the Trails Committee and other committees, that I think we can support them in the right way if we really consider this a need. My phone number is 856-371-3012, and I would ask the balance of the board members to state their phone number also. If you have any questions, call me direct. Send an email, director3@legacy@leesburg, and I'll be more than glad to talk to you in person. I think Frank has something to say.
I'd like to point out to residents also on Alex's thing, anybody that already picked up the directory, all director emails and phone numbers are in the directory. There's a specific page for it.
Unlike Alex, I did not know I had something to say. However, I will say that I've been here 5 years. I love Legacy. I think we have a lot of unique things about Legacy that makes it an amazing place. I have friends of mine that are on the board, or were on the board over at the plantation where I used to live. And I'll just say that they are not without this problem over there. Big time. We are very thankful and blessed to be here. That being said, thankfully we don't have 2 golf courses to take care of, a restaurant to take care of, and a pro shop to take care of. Since I've been here, I've heard people say they never do anything. All this talk and nothing ever gets done, and I'm not getting any younger, and I've been here for 16 years, and darn it, do something even if it's wrong. Yeah. I've heard that from many people. So I guess I'd just like to say that I think we have a good board. I think we've had good boards in the past. We have good people here that do a lot of things here without getting praised for it. We have a Trails Committee that's worked very hard. We've had a Space Planning Committee that's worked very hard. There's other committees that have worked very hard. I know the Finance Committee met today for a long time. We have good people here spending hours and hours of their time. And at this age that we all are, there's only 2 valuable things left in our life: time and health. And when people volunteer, they give up their time, sometimes at the expense of their health. I'd like to see some things change in Legacy. I'd like to see the trails improve. That is our shining, forte. That's what we're known for. When you drive in, it says we are a nature community. Well, let's invest in that. And thankfully, trails are cheaper than golf courses and restaurants and all that stuff. But we want to do some of these things. And I fear that the bar is too high to get anything voted on. And it's kind of a slap in the face of people that have spent hours and hours and hours of time on committees working to improve here if it can't actually get done. My fear is also this, and then I'll shut up. I know I've talked a long time. 2.3 miles that way is the Villages. If you don't think that, drive to Okahumpka Post Office and then go a tad farther and you'll see bulldozers, because that's where the Villages is going to go. My company does over 900 inspections in the Villages a year. I know the Villages like the back of my hand. Their prices are high. But you know what? Their prices stay high. Why? Very easy. Their houses go for hundreds of thousands of dollars more than ours. But it's because that community keeps everything up. It is pristine. My biggest fear is this. I don't want Legacy in a few years to be known for, oh yeah, that place used to be gorgeous, but you know what? They never kept it up. They never spent any money to make it fresh, and now it's kind of like shock worn. It's dated, it's worn out, it's old, it was nice 10, 15 years ago. And then you'll see our property values go down. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, first voice says something. Okay, let's see.
Whatever way, I'll follow you. You can walk around, it's okay.
Okay, first off, thank you all for coming. Second off, I'm pissed. Because this room should be full.
That's right.
And I see, what, 25, 30 people that care? Yeah. Where's the rest of it? Yeah, you're at home, and I hope you're at home. Now, what Frank said was just true, and I've got to say this right now. The last board appointed this document ad hoc committee. And they appointed some very good people, some very good residents to take a look at all our documents and see what and recommend changes and what need to be changed. And these are the changes they came up with. So, why are we doing this now? We have one time we can do this. Change it from 667 to 501. A dozen years ago when I was on the board, I asked our lawyer, why is it at 667? He said, to make it tough. Well, yeah, it is real tough. As you can see by these numbers of what we have voted in the past, we can't even get 667 people to vote, much less 667 to vote yes. That's why we're doing these town halls. That's why we're going to send a letter out. That's why we're talking to people. I've had several people already ask me, want to spend more money? No, we can already spend money easier. We can do that real easy. All we need is 50% plus one to spend money. If we have just 300 people to vote, all we need is 151 yes votes, and we can spend a lot of money. Thank you very much. We're not going to do that. We live here too, and you know where we live. I'm one of those people that's been here 14 and a half years, and we love it here. Is it perfect? No. Is it pretty damn good? Yes, it is. And we've enjoyed being a part of this community, being involved in the community, walking the trails, using our athletic fields, watching other people use the athletic fields. So the whole idea about this is to make things just a little bit easier. Specifically, 4.8.2 deals with trails. Now, one of the things that it says we have to do is ask St. John's to improve our trails in the conservation easement, which we understand. We have no problem with that. However, 4.8.2 negates all of that. It says you can't do any of that. Even if St. John says, yes, our covenants say, no, you can't. That's one of the covenants that we want to change. Another one of the covenants deals with how many people can rent in here. That's a really important thing, and other communities around us have taken that up, and that's what we're trying to do also. We don't want to be known as an Airbnb. We want to be known as a legacy. So that's some of the things, that's why we want to change the vote from 667 to 501, 50% plus one. It's that simple. So thank you all for coming today, the few of you. I hope there's another 500 or 600 watching at home. Probably not. The soaps are on. So this is really important to us. And just like Frank said, you got a lot of good people working on these committees. They spend a lot of time talking things out, looking at it several different ways, discussing, and then finally bringing it to us and to you. So I've said enough. And anybody else want to talk now?
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure. Go right ahead.
I'll use my inside voice.
Okay.
I'm Barbara Howell. Thanks for coming. I just want to say we're not going to get this passed unless everyone votes. And everyone gets their friends to vote. And those friends get other friends to vote. We have to make this a domino effect. All of our snowbirds are gone right now. And they constitute, what, about a third of the houses here? We need to get all their votes as well. So we need to let them know than they are, but are there any questions?
Actually, we were gonna do that, we're gonna
Oh, I'm
have, there's
sorry.
2 microphones on each side, that if you wanna come up, or we can walk around, it's really.
Oh,
No.
sure.
Bobby Fleischer, I've lived in this community almost 8 years. My biggest curiosity was, if this does not pass to this time, and it's been that long since we've had any changes, what happens? Do we get another choice, another chance at this?
You wouldn't have another chance at it right now, so in other words, that if you, yes, so if this does not pass, when the board looks at the other changes to the documents, like allowing to build bridges, then you would have to have 667 votes to pass that project being done. Yes, sir. Yeah, and the rentals, that's a big thing. So we are looking at adding, you guys are actually covered on the Airbnb. Nobody can rent for less than 30 days here. Of course, you'd like to see it be more, that way you don't have to worry about it. But you have a lot more investors buying properties in here. And that's what you don't want, because you don't want your community to become an investment property where people are renting out their homes. So to increase that, that's one of the things that they're looking at doing, is adding some more language in there as far as that goes. In order to do that, it has to be either 667 yes votes if this does not pass, or 50% plus 1. Are there any other questions? Residents?
Okay, so this is more of a just open-ended question and concern. With us dropping the requirement to the 50% plus 1 vote, my concern would be that special interests could more easily push through something that the community may not really want. And in my opinion, or whatever it's worth, the 66.6% created that high bar, much as the Senate, the United States Senate has the 60% rule, or the 60 out of 100 senators have to be all in agreement for most of their bills to go through unless a filibuster is put in place. I don't fully understand the politics either, but it seems like it sets a higher bar that requires a much more concentrated effort informing the residents who live here the benefits of any particular project that is trying to be done. So I'm just saying, I'm not necessarily against changing this, but my concern is a small special interest group of residents who want to do something could more easily push this through on those of us who really don't want that.
Can I answer
Yeah.
that, because I was the one that voted no?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good question. And I was the only board member who voted no when this came up. There were 7 of us, 6 voted yes, I voted no. And I voted no for the same reason, because once again, it makes it very, very hard. But if you look at our history, even when there was a lot of people voting, we didn't even get to 500 yeses. So, as a small interest group, I thought about that. I thought about it for a long time. It is still going to be extremely difficult to make 501 yes votes. And once again, I struggle with that. But by far and away, if we don't change it, then none of this will get done. And we won't be able to change how we do rentals. We won't be able to do things as far as working in the conservation easement areas. So, yeah, and I thought long and hard, but the other thing I thought about, more than 2/3 of the board voted for this. So that means that's the will of the people. So I'm on board this train 100%, and I understand your thoughts and your process there. I did too. That's why I voted no to begin with. But now I'm 100% behind it. Yeah, you got it?
Thanks, Chris.
No problem. By the way, if I didn't introduce myself before, I'm Chris DeBow, Director 5. Apologize, I just think everybody knows me.
So as a follow-up to what Chris just said, The supermajority is not only improbable, numbers say it's impossible, which means nothing will ever change. 50% plus one is still the majority of this community. It's not a slam dunk. It will require a lot of work on behalf of anyone who has a mission or a project they want to push through. 501 are a lot of votes. And when you look at the numbers there, the greatest obstacle we have to voting on anything at Legacy is apathy. The apathetic vote generally leads all votes. So you have to take the approach, in my opinion, that 501 represents the majority of the community, and the majority should speak. And if the majority is in favor of something, then we should do it. If the majority says, don't do it, then we should, and move on. But the 67, I will say again, I'll leave where I started, is not improbable. It's impossible. We've never gone to 67 votes on anything. So let's make it somewhat meaningful so that we can get some things done here. Thank you.
Anybody else have?
Upstairs over there.
The only thing I would suggest is, when we talk about the trails, but, and I approve of trails, but my pocketbook, I don't want us turning into a renter community. And I think that needs to be in the mailing that is going out.
Yes.
I agree. Very good.
It is in the information that we have put together for.
Anybody else have any questions?
I'm sorry. Sorry, Brian, one wasn't. So since we're holding the vote to change this to the 50% plus one, when a good chunk of the residents aren't even around, may not participate in the vote, the chances of this getting the 667, just to even get this go to 50 plus one, is greatly impacted, I would think.
So everybody, I would say, well, I can tell you, everybody but about 140 of your residents are signed up for electronic voting, which means it goes into their email and they can do it no matter where they're at. So that's where it might come into where you guys know that somebody's up in Washington, maybe not paying attention to their emails, that you say, hey, you should have gotten an email about voting for this, and, just give them a nudge as to vote for it. But everybody does, when we've sent out things in the past on this, even though they're away, we actually do get a really good response from people, even when they're out of town. The good thing is just to continue to send reminders. Not only does the guy from the Inspector of Elections send reminders, we can send reminders here. And I'm sure you guys saw at the last election, you got a lot of reminders. You got reminders from him, plus we sent out emails, I think like once a week or once every 2 weeks up until the election. I think that's the only way we were able to hit that 613 number last year. So it's just repetitively just making sure people are voting.
And we can track the votes down to the individual that hasn't voted. So let's say 20 days into the voting and we've only got half of the residents that have voted. We can step up the efforts to market to the people that aren't voting. We can actually extend the vote if we need to get more resident participation. Today's town hall we've recorded. We're planning on sending that out to the residents that don't have the ability to watch it on Channel 17. We'll put it up on the internet so they can view it that way. So there's some things that we haven't done in the past that will be done this time. So I think you'll actually see that participation rate go way up.
The other thing does anybody else have any questions before I go on to the next?
I am confused.
Which is easy to do. That 50%
Yes,
plus
I have.
one, are we talking about the number of voters, or are we talking about the number of homes with one vote per home? Okay. That's,
So it's not the total vote, there's two ways to calculate, right? You have the total ownership, and then you have the total amount of people that vote. In this case, it has to be the total ownership, so 501 votes, not, 150 out of 300.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Is there a reason we can't delay the vote until November, December? It has to be the third.
Why not wait for the season when the snowbirds are back?
Maybe progress? I mean, the board would have to answer that one. It's sitting on it for 4 months or going ahead and doing it. It's up to you. I mean, that's a board decision.
We have so much going on right now. We want to plan out as far as projects are concerned. So I think with the means of communication that we have today, I think there's a real good opportunity that we can reach out to the residents that are away or currently here watching on channel 17. The issue is that you have to be, if you believe in this and you think it's the right direction to go, you need to talk to your neighbors and your friends. Someone mentioned the snowbirds, I think it was Brian. Problem is, you have an opportunity there. Give them a call. Say, hey, here's what's going on in Legacy. We need your help here so we can move this community forward. Frank hit on a key point. Village is a couple miles down the road. We want to be prepared and meet the obligations that you need to make sure that in the future, your value of your home stays where it's at. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
Hi, John Harvey, lot 673. We have some rental homes here. Are they owned by LLC Incorporated or something like that? How do you contact that company to get them to vote because the people renting can't vote?
Correct.
So is there a way to contact them to get that, or?
They still get it just like you guys would. If they're not signed up for electronic voting, they'll get it in the U.S. mail.
Okay.
For each home that they have. So the guy that owns 4, he'll get 4 of them in the mail.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry, real quick, how many are actually corporate owned?
There's none corporate owned. They're all privately owned, but there's, a couple people that own multiple homes. So the other thing I was going to say is that anybody that has a question as to whether you are signed up for electronic voting, Josh and I do have our spreadsheets here. We can check it for you to be sure that you are signed up and that we have your information correct. If not, we have the forms here that you can complete the form to update your information or ensure that you are on there as a electronic voter. You're a voter anyway, it's just the electronic system. You have to fill out a specific form to be able to electronic vote. So if you want to check it, if you're sure you got the vote in January and you voted, or March, if you got the vote then and you know you voted, then you're probably good. But anybody that's new, isn't on the list, you can always come up and check and we'll let you know. And other residents can get signed up for that as well.
Just a quick question. Those snowbirds that aren't signed up for Lucky voting,
how do the snowbirds vote if they're not signed up for electronic
they
voting?
paper. So
And-
a lot of them say that, yeah.
Okay. So they'll get paper, I'm certain that 100% of your snowbirds that either they have their mail forwarded or they have an alternate mailing address in our system. And so whatever they get mailed will go to that alternate address.
One more thing. One question about, why do we wait till November or December? And that's a really good question, except right now we're preparing a budget for next year. So this is important to find out, maybe some things will change, maybe they won't, but that's looking ahead so we can get the right and correct budget.
Anybody else? You talk too much.
That's silly talk. Just one thing. I've spoken to many residents that seem to be for this, and I've given it a lot of careful thought, and I am for this. I have spoken to one resident who wasn't for this, and I value that person's wisdom or whatever. She's a smart person, okay? And she had a fear that if she voted for this, something like was said earlier, you know, what happens if some nefarious group, it allows them to take over legacy and turn this into a horrible place. I thought about that, and I'm just thinking that I don't want legacy to be run by fear. I want legacy to be run by forward thinking and to better legacy. And I'm very concerned about the rental situation. And I don't want to get into the weeds here on that, but there's very good reason for all of us to be concerned about that. I also like to see the trails enhanced because it is our claim to fame. So are we going to not do anything forever because of an irrational fear? Or are we going to work to make legacy the best it can be? Because we all invested here. I mean, all of our houses are worth good money and we paid for them. So we have an investment here. This is where we chose to live. Why would we not want it to be the very best that it could possibly be and to maintain those property values? So that's all. Thank you.
You may say it's an irrational fear, but people don't want their HOA to go up outrageously, okay? I understand cost of living increases, but let's say, oh my God, you don't put a pergola or something fancy. But there's still a decent number of people that says it's not necessary. It doesn't enhance this neighborhood. It just makes it look a little ornate. I would just think it's necessary and what would enhance the property, but let's not try to be the villages, not try to be fancy like them and offer all the amenities that they have. Just keep us within reason, still our house valuable and sellable, but not go crazy. And that 50+1%, the fear is maybe there is a small group, and then you get 50+1% to go and let's meet the villages. Let's be the villages. We're going to be part of the villages. I moved here because I didn't want to be. I want reasonable, not outlandish decisions to be made. And a small group can be made.
Sure.
And
Can I respond after you?
Let me.
Because I mentioned the villages, so I opened up.
I agree,
Yeah.
but understand, this vote deals only with covenants. It has nothing to do, if we want to spend money, it is so much easier for us to go hog wild and pig crazy. It absolutely is. We could go out and spend, as long as we got 51% of the vote, not 501, as long as it, say, only 400 people voted or 400 homes, all we would need was 201. Much easier than this. This deals only with covenants, and I understand exactly, and we agree with you 100%. We don't want to be the villages either. But we want to take care of what we do have. That's our fiduciary responsibility, the board of directors, to make sure that the common ground areas are the best that they can be, so that when people come in, they go, wow, this looks like a nice place. And I understand exactly what you're saying. But to answer your question a little bit too, got some friends over here at Arlington Ridge. Right now, for the same thing, we pay $235 a month. They pay $300 a month. I've got a friend who comes to the Vets Club on Friday night, the first Friday, by the way, for anybody out there who might come. It's a potluck, and the food's always good. But she lives over at Highland Lakes, and she's on the board of directors. For the same services we get here, we pay $235 a month. She pays $385 a month. Because they don't have anybody who comes and cuts their lawn. So she has to pay $100 a month to a landscaper to come and cut her lawn. And then she pays another $185 a month for basic cable and internet that's in our HOA fees. And then she pays $110 a month for her HOA fees. So for the same thing that we get $235, she's paying $385 this year. So, and she comes to our Vets Club's meetings and she just said, you people just don't understand how good you got it. Sometimes we don't, but that's why we live here.
So just to back up what Chris just said is that this vote is just for the ability to make changes to your CCNR. It's not to actually do any work or anything like that. It's simply just to make the change in order to make changes to your covenants. That's it.
I swear it was the last time. I want to apologize to you because it was easily misconstrued what I said. I do not worship the villages. I do not live in the villages. I don't want to live in the villages. My business makes a lot of money there, but there's reasons why I live here and not there. The point I was trying to make, and I apparently did not make it well, is that the property values of the villages are high and they're maintained high because their amenities that they have are maintained well. Nothing looks shop-worn there. And that's what I was saying here, is that my fear is that in the coming years, we're a 20-year-old community. This building is starting to be shop-worn. Other things in Legacy are beginning to look shop-worn, and that has a direct correlation to property values. And that was the only thing I was saying, meant to say about the villages, that we do get compared to them when people are shopping, buying new homes. I do not want to become the villages, and I'm not looking for any more amenities. I'm looking to take care of what we have so it still looks good and is attractive here. And so...
That's what I was trying to say, is let's maintain what we have, keep it pristine, but we don't need to keep our tree, you know, or.
Right. I agree with you 100%, and I think you will find if you look at this present board, and I can only speak for the present board because I've only been on this board, I think this present board has been very fiscally conservative. For instance, not everybody agreed, but we did not proceed with a fountain, okay, because that was a costly endeavor, okay? There were other things that we had not done because they were costly endeavors. In addition, this board has been working hard on increasing and enhancing our maintenance to make what we have better. I remember a conversation that I had with Todd. He was a very good president of the board a few years ago when I first came here. And I remember telling Todd specifically, we need to take care of the toys that we have before we buy new toys. And I don't know if Todd remembers that conversation, but I said that then, I believe it now. So, and I will agree that we are $150 cheaper a month, our HOA fees for what we get than any other community around here. We are the best deal going, and we need to realize it.
Brian, you had another question?
Okay. So, all of what Frank just said, this change of the vote for the CCNRs would have nothing to do with what you're talking about, the board's fiduciary restraint, nothing about spending money on the maintenance. It's nothing about spending money on the fountain, nothing about spending money on
Correct.
maybe just trails because you want to do some changes
Well,
to
not even
what
that.
we do on trails, right?
So they would still have to go, so let's just say both of these changes went through.
Yeah,
The board would still have to then get proposals for whatever work they were wanting to do on the trails, and then that would have to be approved. If it's over $50,000, it has to go
Then it
out for
goes
a
to the vote.
community vote. Correct.
which does not require 50%
No,
plus
just-
one.
it's just the majority.
Majority, a simple
Just the
majority.
Correct.
So the changes to the CCNR vote threshold has nothing to do with anything except for changing the CCNRs.
Correct.
Correct.
100%.
Okay, in my mind, that changes a lot of things. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good question.
Are there any other questions? If not, we can wrap up this session. We will be back here again on Thursday evening at 6:30 for anybody that wants to attend that day. Anybody that's working and would like to attend are more than welcome to come out on Thursday evening at 6:30. Okay, and if you want to check with Josh and I on your voting status, you're more than welcome. We'll be here for a few minutes to do that. Okay, thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, board. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Good questions.